Just waiting for those to come in. I do have an idea for Crazy Wubsy Adventure 2. I mean, I'll get to that when I can. Well, I doubt, well, if anybody else would be interested, but that's if enough people ask for it. But, I mean, I do have ideas for future videos. I'm just looking at, well, Erica's comment here. I'm just waiting for everybody else to come on. But yeah, you know, for those that are just tuning into the stream, kind of just doing this, you know, flying by the seat of my pants. But yeah, you know, I'm just doing this just in case if I don't end up attending VidCon. Well, not that I have to, just because I don't have too many fans in California that come to those events. And usually when I go, I don't usually meet anybody except online, just because it's the only way it works out. I've seen the I Love You, You Hate Me documentary. Well, just that little clip, and you know, I'm otherwise humbled by it. I mean, personally, I don't care as to how they feature my clip. It's just the one way to help at least get some more traction for my channel. Well, I mean, nothing against it really, but it's at least nice. Well, even if however many people have seen the documentary. Let me put this user out here. Somebody said to stop destroying stuff, but I mean, how else am I going to pay for health insurance and other things? But yeah, so if you're wondering why I have this camera pointing at the corner, it's just because, well, as per the title of this video, I have completed at this time a new fan film. Of course, you could probably take a wild guess as to what I'm helming next. It's all with toys. I mean, it's super close to finish, although just getting some pickup shots. I'm mostly just casting on backstage. And yeah, I mean, I've otherwise got everything what I need just so I can edit it and be able to ready it for the 21st, which should coincide with Tinkerbell's birthday. Well, if any of you have ever watched the Tinkerbell films, I mean, you get with what I'm telling for here, but I'm doing a new fan film, but it's with toys. And I'm hoping to at least get some traction for that. You know, that's just also the main reason I'm doing the stream here. Don't mind the destruction stuff. Well, saying that you're calling out as to how you've seen my videos ever since you were youngins and that kind of thing. I mean, it's fine, but you know, I'm kind of wanting to talk a little bit on this movie. Well, I mean, I'd be open to at least chat with any of you. Well, if nothing too much of my personal life anyway. But yeah, I mean, I haven't uploaded a new video at this time. Well, I had it to where I posted for the first 3 days and then once every 3 days for this month, but I didn't post for the 15th just because I was busy for Father's Day. But yeah. Oh, and also just another thing too is that I have a super chat enabled. So, well, if you notice a $sign for here, it's just for those to pitch in. Well, for any of you that will want to donate to me and be able to help me out with not just my channel, but any future movies I put up, as well as anything crazy and outrageous. I mean, I could do more shooting range stuff, but that boils down to whatever toys are worthy of being shot up. Well, certainly not these anyway, but yeah. It's a big ass pool. Well, I mean, it's been here since at least when we first got the house. I mean, I don't go into it often, you know. But, you know, of course, it always needs to be maintained. But yeah, well, just for what I'm doing for the stream here is basically just wanting to chit chat a little bit with some fans, for those that wouldn't be able to have made it to VidCon, or in which case, since I'm not planning to go at this time, I don't know if it's sort of a thing to where, I mean, much the same as how I went, like in 2022, oh, and then eventually went again in 2024. I don't know if it's sort of a thing where I'll just do it annually, or once every 2 years. Well, not that it's really necessary, but I mean, I only can just go with when I can, but sometimes I get busy, or just I don't want to get the tickets at last minute. I've already drowned toys in pools. Tough. Well, it's funny how you bring this up, because I know there'd be times to where sometimes I'll be shooting videos and like horror movies, and I know that sometimes the neighbors would note, well, I mean, there was this one time I was shooting a horror movie and I left something in the pool, and I remember my mom getting note of from the neighbor next door, well, also named Lisa, and he's just like, Lisa, your son's body part is floating in the pool. So that's how I at least still know about it, just because, it's sort of a joke, and also just because of the picture that my dad took. It was just of a floating hand in the swimming pool, just a severed limb, a fake prop. And as it goes with destruction videos, I am rather indifferent to toys, especially baby toys. I don't have any hatred or any animosity towards them, or with whatever I'm doing. I'm only doing it just because it's the only way I could be able to make a living. So, and I've never had the cops called on me, none of that stuff. Well, I know for a fact that at least probably this one time, well, not that's related to destruction, but one of the neighbors' houses, just a couple houses over, like over here, actually caught fire. Well, it started in the attic, and I mean, I didn't know of which up until I saw all these cop cars and fire trucks outside, and we don't usually get the fire department called like ever, and so I went and shot some footage of it. Well, this was all the way back in like months ago. I'm planning to put it in my next movie. Well, not this one, but it's just a way to get free footage out of it. I'm noticing somebody requesting to do Julius Jr. Don't expect it, but only if I really need to. I mean, I've only seen maybe 1 or 2 episodes, but otherwise I'm indifferent to it. I mean, anything else past 2015, whether it be on Nick Jr. or the Disney Jr., like Disney Channel, like, I pretty much have paid no heed. I stopped watching TV years ago, but that's about it. The Snow White remake deserves to get destroyed, but I guess it would just depend on, well, if there's any other types of product related to it, just because of all the bad press it's gotten and the fact that it just wasn't really needed. Well, you know how with Snow White, the original, it's a classic. It was the house that Disney built. Well, I suppose with the remake, it was the one that brought the house down, brought the Disney company down. The house that Disney destroyed. It started with Snow White and ended with Snow White. No more of these remakes or sequels or anything. Well, I know at this time, well, if any of you have been paying attention, we're getting not a remake, a sequel to Spaceballs, which is a Star Wars parody. I only know of it just because I know one of the teaching assistants I had was obsessed with that movie, and he said, you have to watch it. Of course, it's getting a sequel after 40 years, as if, the time is right. Well, the only way that 2026 or 27 could get better is as if, Austin Powers 4 would be greenlit. By then, you're looking at box office gold. I mean, if you factor in all the other films that are coming up. But yeah. So yeah, well, for those paying attention, I have a new film that's coming up, a new fan film, which is based on the Disney Fairies film, well, in which case it's with toys. And I only got interested in this just merely for the types of lost media related to it, specifically on the Ring of Belief, into which there's very few storyboards that remain. Well, I mean, here's the thing, that the original Tinkerbell movie was close to being finished and had sort of a different vision than with what was eventually put out, and it was about 90% done. When it was screened, the CEO at the time, I think it was John Lasseter, the company, he deemed the film unwatchable and ordered the film to be, polished over, to start back at square one, even though most of the animation had already been finished, like 90% of which, and it kind of went into, I don't think it's really too much. Well, I know that supposedly explained as to how Peter Pan met up with Tinkerbell and the stuff with Captain Hook and that kind of thing. And, well, I know there was some other unrelated stuff, like I know there's like a rock band section in the film. I mean, it's just part of it. But yeah, so this is kind of what this film is on. Well, I mean, for here, it's basically on how Tink meets Peter. Well, because I know for a fact, well, if you've ever watched any of the Disney fairy films, they go up only to the Never Beast. And, well, the original intention was there was supposed to be another film that would follow up, which would become Tinker Academy, which would take place between the first and second movie, The Lost Treasure, and then the final one, which essentially would have had Tinkerbell meeting Peter Pan, well, which would then lead into the 1953 Peter Pan film. And now, essentially, the series is a prequel to Peter Pan, but of course, because they were having trouble with the story, just like writer's block or whatever, the projects were eventually canceled, and the final nail in the coffin was when the studio that made these films and all these other direct-to-video Disney films shut its doors in 2018, which is quite of a shame, just because, I mean, not there was much demand for these video on, well, just these direct-to-video Disney films, but you get the idea. So, yeah, this is just what I'm doing for here. I love how half the chat is just telling you to destroy stuff. I beg to differ, especially when I'm a filmmaker, and I'm just talking about for here. Support his films and toy killing spree. Thank you. But yeah, that's kind of the point for here. I just would want some traction for my upcoming fan film. I have another one that's in the works. I put out a poll in particular asking for those. Well, if I were to do another horror-related fan film, a lot of you suggested The Final Destination. Well, in response to the new Final Destination Bloodlines film, which I've already seen. I enjoyed it. I think just disappointed at the fact it didn't show more of the first responders angle. Well, I know that doing research online, and do forgive me if I'm a little enervated, well, if my memory is, or just with what I say anyway. But the thing of it goes is that the original intention was to have it on first responders, but the script ended up being changed just because the third act was a little derivative, and simply because the creators did not want to go all out and basically make another paint by the numbers Final Destination film. They basically changed it to a Cursed Bloodline, which is fine. I mean, considering how the Halloween Thorn trilogy did that before, only in which cases with Final Destination, and yeah. But, you know, it's kind of a way to be able to tie it and, you know, bring something unique to the table. Well, I do wish that they would have done a little bit more with death. Well, I mean, just some of the death scenes. I mean, compared to the other films, I mean, it doesn't really stand out. Maybe aside from the MRI one, but I do think they could have taken it a little further. Where, spoiler alert, well, there's a moment with the MRI bit to where one of the characters who is allergic to peanuts, well, and to which, well, for here they were going to try and find a way to be able to have death, you know, just leave them alone. Well, I mean, just the way to be able to conquer death is either to have somebody, you know, make a sacrifice for themselves, or, you know, kill themselves and then eventually revive them, you know, just sort of flatline them, I suppose. And so it, of course, it doesn't work. And, well, the tattoo guy gets, like, sucked into the MRI, well, into which case, well, something happens with the machine and it causes just a huge magnetic sensation. Well, I don't know, but I mean, you see the movie, you get it, but for here it causes just the, you know, its power to get more and more sort of traction or something. But, you know, the machine in particular, it just like starts sucking in all the metal things in there, and it starts sucking in the guy, and, you know, he kind of gets pulled on in, and it's an elaborate death scene. And they have this thing with the vending machine, well, and to which it culminates to where a spring comes loose from it and drills the guy in the head, well, the one who's was the peanut allergy, and drills his brains out. I mean, that's fine, but, you know, I mean, considering how the thing is still plugged in, I mean, I felt like they could have went a little further by having it to where the machine unplugs, like the vending machine unplugs, basically goes flying in and crushes the guy. You know, well, here he is getting his brains drilled out, and then the vending machine comes unplugged and crushes the guy. You know, that's like overkill. You know, it was almost like they were setting up for that, but it didn't happen. You know, I really think it would have been a lot more elaborate, well, if more overkill. But I know, of course, that wasn't the case. You know, I would have really liked to have seen that. You know, if they were to go and do that. And yeah, I mean, compared to the other deaths, I mean, they weren't as unique. Well, I know that they had other Easter eggs involved, like the stuff with the logging truck and the train. And I mean, that was fine, you know, just to pay homage at least to the other films. But yeah, I do think it could have been much more so. But, you know, of course, considering with where things are headed, you know, and how they indicate that there's at least 2 people left alive, even though as how it goes with Final Destination, just about every character is killed off, and so there leaves very little legacy characters, unless if they were to bring back, like, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, which would be nice. But of course, it is possible still that her and her gang still would have died. I'm talking about part 3 here when they're on the subway. But yeah, you know, I do think it could have been much more. But of course, with luck of those 2 survivors, I mean, you know, if any of you've seen any of the Final Destination films, you know, only 2 characters have survived the series thus far, just because one of them has died. Well, of course, is eventually resuscitated and eventually is able to sort of, you know, get death out the way, you know, just because, well, it's how the series goes. It's just that one of the kids has this premonition of this horrible accident, a high-profile accident, and eventually the thing comes true. They cheat it, but then the, you know, death personified thing comes after them in sort of elaborate ways, you know, sort of Rube Goldberg type scenarios, to where, the thing, you know, starts in one place and then, you know, it keeps escalating in another, you know, but that kind of thing. So, and I like that series. Well, I love the series, especially, you know, other franchises that can tell an overarching story, like Paranormal Activity and Insidious. I have all those movies. I know I did used to have like Final Destinations 1 to 3 on DVD because I remember I used to get DVDs from Fry's Electronics, which is no longer in business. But yeah, you know, just that sort of thing. And yeah, so I figure it would be a perfect opportunity just to do a fan film, although in which case just do it on a separate sort of thing, and you know, maybe have sort of a tease in there. Or I mean, there's of course it would have an homage specifically to where, well, originally they had it to where with, well, one of the surviving characters is Officer Brooke and Kimberly that were involved in the freeway pileup. But just for here, you know, originally there was a, in part 3 there was a newspaper clipping that indicated into which they both fell into a wood chipper, and so I would be able to, you know, possibly go in that direction for here, although it happens to somebody else. But you know, that'd be cool to play with, just as a throwback to there. I mean, of course, I doubt any of you would know anything about Final Destination wise. I mean, those that are much older than just these 12-year-olds that just subscribe for the destruction, that's fine. Of course, you don't know what it's like. I thought I already did Dandy's World. Well, unless it was just the Ban Ban plush. Well, I know if I were to do Dandy's World, I guess it would just depend on the plush. I know the flowers at the top tier. I don't know if I would just do that. And then there's other ones for Italian brain rot and things like that. But I guess it depends. Just because I'm not too knowledgeable with certain brain rot, and nor do I have the time or the patience and the priority skills necessary of somebody like the dreaded Musk. But it don't matter anyway. I only just stick to what I know best. Do whatever makes you happy. But yeah, you know, of course, like I said, I'm just only coming on here just to promote my next film. I do appreciate it if I get some traction for it. You know, just because anytime I post the videos, I mean, I otherwise don't get a whole lot of support. What about other movies I have supported? Your movies in destruction? Well, like anything in as far back as like in the past. Well, like besides like the Dark Secrets and Deep Blue, I mean, like I don't know, anything with the plush stuff or whatever. Any of the My Little Pony movies would help. I was just editing a sequence at this time. You know, I haven't started shooting the rest of it yet, but you know, of course, I was just getting some footage back, just virtual filming. I've been doing virtual filming, but yeah, just been editing a sequence with something that would take place in the movie. But I mean, I'll get to that when I can. And yeah, the algorithm on YouTube sucks. I get what you mean, Matthew. You know, I mean, when you establish your channel for just this one sort of pastime, it's kind of hard to ebb and flow with other topics. You know, my calling is with film, and I mean, I've done it before, but otherwise, you know, no audience for it. I mean, I'll get views, but nobody comments on it. Even just any of the other movies I go back to, well, any of the ones I've said, like anything that's in the past, you know, almost nobody comments on there just because they don't have the time, or you know, nobody knows. But it's in the playlists, so easily just go refer to the playlists and, you know, give it some clout. It would very much help. speaking of toys. But yeah, I know, this is just a new movie I'm promoting for here. But the next film I intend to do would be that Final Destination one, and hopefully move on to the next My Little Pony movie. And I'm also editing the next Ghost Jacket. I haven't shot anything new yet, just because I'm just waiting to get Syria back, but that kind of thing. Any of you have seen the Ghost Jacket movies? Just post below. Of course, I know for a fact not everybody comments on those or pays attention to those, even though they get traction for it. I mean, most of which I was able to get traction for just because I promoted those videos, but eventually YouTube stopped paying me for it just because they had to ask me to set up just sort of a ad thing. Well, I forget what it was, but I mean, I'm doing this sort of like freelance. I mean, I don't have anybody backing me up. I mean, just sort of like, I don't know, just something related to the, not monetization, but just for here, just that would help me gain traction for whatever movies I do. Well, even so, the only reason I'm able to get certain views on my movies is just because I promote them to film festivals. And, sometimes it works, other times it doesn't, but Kia Sierra Sierra. Oh yeah, and this house, well, I know for here, this kind of been sitting dormant, but for here I've been wanting to try and blow this up, but, this is going to be, I think I talked about how this is going to be in the My Little Pony movie I'm working on, but, of course, considering, safety involving fireworks, I don't know if I'll be able to do it. I mean, maybe take it out to the desert and blow it up with shotguns, but, it just wouldn't look all that good because I want some fire going. But yeah, I mean, of course, you would need all kinds of protocols put in place, or just wing it. But yeah. Yeah, other than that, I mean, I don't really have anything else to really comment on. I think other than just coming on and saying hi to fans for a bit, and also for those who couldn't come to VidCon or don't even bother. But yeah, just otherwise kind of playing hooky. I mean, I only go to the VidCon stuff once in a while. Well, that being said, I do have a stream planned for when I go back to Universal Studios. Well, because I know, considering the Horror Night events, I don't know if any of you have been checking back on that, but supposedly they announced stuff for Five Nights at Freddy's and Friday the 13th. And usually when I go to Universal Studios, I mean, I do film the inside the haunted houses, but of course with the clips that I've shot, I mean, they usually just sit dormant in my phone, and I only just use certain clips here and there just for certain horror movies. I mean, it's a way to get free footage out of certain events, but for here, I don't always post, but I figure since I'm going to the event and being able to share it with most of you, and also be able to chat with you, I figure, why not? Well, that's not going to be up until October, so, I mean, of course, I'll probably go there and maybe go into the haunted houses and stream, and yeah, well, I mean, I'll still go back and shoot them in there, well, going back and film in there later. I mean, just like passing on through them, as many of these patrons do. Well, I mean, just going to these types of haunted houses. Well, I know that the only problem is, since we're booked for later in October, I imagine it's going to get packed, even though I wanted to go earlier and at a cheaper price. But yeah, I mean, we have the 2 p.m. option where you can go into the park, well, into certain sections of the theme park after dark. I mean, specifically the Nintendo World, which I did a stream on, but I doubt if anybody else has seen that. But yeah, so I'm telling you. Go support those and all my other videos. But yeah, I mean, it'd be fun to go around and, you know, just simply film there and stream there as well, and maybe talk on movies, just because I could really talk about the movies, you know, much like Final Destination and all, and whichever else that comes to mind. Well, of course, I'm kind of a blank slate in a way, but I mean, most of my life I've just been grown up and raised around YouTube and just observing other people's lives. Kind of feeling a little nostalgic in a way, just having rediscovered certain Teletubby videos. Well, in which case, people watching them, like just teenagers and young adults. Like I was trying to track down this one, which I was able to find, but just to some dormitory in the Netherlands. Just these guys watching the ending of Teletubbies, but for here, the cameraman's going through room to room, and you know everybody's just simply chilling, and you know they're just kicking back with it and just going bye bye, you know, just reacting to the end. And I mean, this is just when YouTube videos were really YouTube videos, just, you know, broadcasting oneself, compared to the corporate conglomerate it's kind of become, you know, where you can't even say certain words just because of demonetization and that kind of thing. And I'm kind of walking on eggshells with YouTube's standards. And, you know, I certainly don't want, like, whoever else to try and flag down any of my destructions just because they endanger kids. But yeah, you know, of course things will happen, but really just the only time that I mean, I've had a video taken off was just a YouTube short, but just because it was just some kid that was just trying to flag down all my other videos, and just that one just got snagged off, and I tried to appeal it but was rejected. I've already explained it in some of the other videos, like the Teen Titans Booty Shaker. But yeah. Shout out to Dat Boy. Who gets mad over a grown man destroying plastic? I know, right? I also have a super chat enabled, so if any of you would like to donate to me and to be able to help me out with my channel, specifically any of these new movies, please do so. I mean, I've only had one person pitch in, well, into which they just sent me some money, but I don't know. Of course, nobody else has, just because I'm not Mr. Beast tier. And I thought somebody requested that I do a live-action adaptation of Adventure Island, but, you know, of course that's not possible. You know, just because I'm not Mr. Beast tier, you know, I'm gonna hire some big A-list actors, because I'm not made of money. I mean, I do have, like, an idea, although in which case it's just something else unrelated, but it's kind of Adventure Island-esque. You know, I might do a short conceptual film on it, but, you know, of course, I would prefer not to discuss it, just because in this business, if you discuss film ideas on here, somebody could easily take it and run. So, probably for the better. But it does have something to do with a volcano, but I won't say. Sorry, I was just moving these. Oh, it's okay. Don't expect a lazy town destruction. And simply because the toys are scarce, just in the same sense as Happy Tree Friends, you know? You know, you ever try looking up any of the costumes from back in the day? I remember there used to be a time I had the Toothy costume, but of course, nobody even makes those anymore, you know? And it's kind of sad, you know, even though there were only 3 made, you know? I guess just going back to some of those Happy Tree Friends videos, and specifically on people wearing them in public, you know? Just this one in particular, just of somebody wearing a Cuddles costume, you know, kind of takes me back to that time, to where it's bygone. We won't be able to see any of those again. The current generation that we have just won't understand, really. I mean, I grew up before cell phones, and kind of got the gist of what the internet was like. I mean, I didn't go on things like Club Penguin or Webkins. Well, I know my brother did have an account on there. Well, not any of those sites in particular, like, what was it? Just that. What was it? Well, I know that Steven Rednick, well, one of my friends usually brings up this one, Toontown, and then I know there's other ones I'll name drop, like Pixie Hollow and whichever other ones there are, but yeah, I mean, personally, I'm kind of from an era to where, I mean, I've grown up around millennials and just their shared tastes in music and fashion. I mean, not enough to embrace it, but at least feel the effects of which, especially in movies and stuff. And hence to why I'm kind of nostalgic for those, and just the Y2K set of films, and how it's shot in 35 millimeter. Before everything transitioned digitally. And yeah, especially with the type of music that they had, where it's just a sweeping variety. I mean, compared to just the garbage sort of hip hop we have now. Just no personality. And I think another thing too about why I like Y2K culture in particular is just very maximalism. I mean, compared to the corporate minimalism that we have today, it's just nothing. How do we go from maximalism to minimalism? I mean, personally, I come from an era to where I know that there are those that tend to argue about certain generations, and I mean, I come from a generation to where I can have anything accessible at my fingertips, but I mean, I don't hold a grudge as to how other people have grown up, or with how they lived. I mean, because I've kind of lived through it, if not for too long. I mean, whereas with today's generation, it's like you was born with an iPad, yo mama nada. I mean, I grew up before iPads, and personally, I kind of admire computers a little better. I mean, specifically if I'm going on YouTube. I mean, with iPads and iPhones, you can't keep two tabs open and be able to play music and watch a video at the same time. So that's why it's kind of for the better. And also with editing on here, it's a little bit more of a labor of love compared to doing it with a computer, even if it's a little more efficient. But you be the judge of that. Is that a Figment I see? This is Spike, but I'm not planning to destroy him, and I see no reason to. Moms will see stuff like Little Einsteins or Wonder Pets and will choose crap like Skibbity Toilet. Yeah, I mean, really. Personally, I remember the days to where I could just easily giggle and snicker, laugh at something like the Backyardigans and Max and Ruby and the Wonder Pets. Whereas now, I don't know if I'm starting to embrace it. I mean, compared to the stuff that we have now. I mean, just a generational gap sort of thing. But yeah, I'm gonna quit the stream in just a little bit, but I just only wanted to update y'all on the new fan film I have coming up. I'll do expect it on the 21st, if not at another time. But yeah, and this will just to also compensate for the fact I probably won't go to VidCon, even though it's nice. I know the last time I met Plain Rock, and I have it on the stream for posterity, but of course, if I'm not going to be meeting anybody else, and any fans in particular, well, those that watch my videos, there's just no point. But I think every once in a while, once I have some decent traction, I mean, I'm close to 400,000, but if I have more people from my area that actually care about me, I mean, specifically if I see a rise in more viewership, or just like more subscriptions, like if I get to 500,000 or close to 1 million, then I'll probably consider hitting up VidCon again. Well, if not all the time, but just only if I'm in a position where I want to go, because otherwise, there's just nothing better. I mean, the months just slip by and you don't have anything to really reflect on. I mean, I got movies, but of course, I don't review movies. But yeah, iPad kids will never know how good it felt to go outside and touch grass. Yeah. Most of you understand. I still do destruction from time to time, but if not so ardently compared to movies. But I mean, you can otherwise tell as to when I'm phoning in a destruction, but that's just because I don't really have much expertise or knowledge on the certain toys like these, where I could really riff and go off of whatever I know best on that. But yeah, these will be up next. Well, if mostly compiled, just because there's no reason to do them separate, unless if there's any reason. I've seen Team America World Police. I mean, I've probably, pay no heed to too many of these movies, but yeah, I mean, at a time when movies were still movies, but I know I see people talk about it once in a while. And I know that Trey Parker and Matt Stone are coming up with a new movie. Well, it was originally set for this year, actually, like next month, but then they pushed it ahead by another year. But yeah, I mean, of course, I'm not too interested in seeing it, but I mean, if it's any good, I'll go ahead and see it. I mean, that's sort of the one thing where I can tell when a movie's good is when I get excited watching it. Like, can we talk about like a movie that, of course, is not generally known by too many? Well, I mean, unless if you're a Mario fan, the Morton Jekyll Super Mario Brothers. Like the director's cut. I went and rewatched that recently. I remember watching it back in like April or so. But with that one, with the director's cut, I think it was just for that. Whereas what little things that are cut out, that don't make so much of an impact, makes so much more of an impact now that it's back in the movie. And yeah, I mean, it provides more structural integrity, in my opinion. I mean, I know it doesn't really improve it, like, compared to the Mario movie that we have now, that multi-million-dollar one with Chris Pratt. I mean, which was fine, But I know just for that one, it was at a time to where, those type of Mario stuff was very early on, and they didn't know as to how to approach the source material. And so they came up with an idea that was just sort of a dystopian, type film. I mean, it kind of had this sort of like Blade Runner sort of vibe. I mean, if you see it for here, but I guess it was just for here just because of studio meddling and things like that, of course there was trouble with the production and the thing being recut. And I mean, just for here, with the 20 minutes that are put back in the film, even if it's just from the work print, I think it actually gives it more legs to stand. Like, it kind of increases the stakes. Increases the stakes and provides more of the scope and tone, and there's more humor and a lot more to do with the characters like Iggy and Spike. Whereas in the theatrical cut, well, the stuff that's in there doesn't really make sense. And I know in particular with jokes, like some of them are supposed to be setting up moments for payoff later. Well, for here, they are paid off, such as the pizza gag and some other little things, that otherwise it, have little context. Well, specifically, in the theatrical cut. But, I highly recommend this Morton Jekyll cut. You could check it out on the Internet Archive for free. And, I think it gave me a broader appreciation for the film. I mean, I've seen it on YouTube in bits and pieces. But yeah, I mean, just with the director's cut, with the new director's cut, or just the work print of which, it made me like it even better, especially, you know, just when that Super Mario Brothers music kicks in at the end. Well, after the Mario Brothers defeat Bowser, you know, it's kind of a nice wraparound segment. Wraparound, whatever. I mean, I've also done Mario and Luigi videos. Well, Mario and Luigi at Home is a series I've done with my Legos, into which I bought action figures from the movie, just Iggy and Spike and Bowser, and specifically name drop them there in that video. And, you know, of course, having had no knowledge of the other, well, just of that film, aside from maybe clips I've seen. But yeah, I mean, of course, I don't think it disregards any continuity or anything, but, you know, just kind of its own spin. But yeah, you know, I mean, I featured them in that video, and more or less just sort of ridicule in a way. But yeah, I'm only just showing this Mario figure just as an example, and also just because it's a classic figure. I think it's just from Wendy's, actually. Well, I know for a fact that I recently tracked down an old Mario video into which he goes to Disneyland. I don't know if it was like Shadow Brothers. I think it was Shadow Brothers. But yeah, I mean, just for that one, I mean, I've just been trying to track down old nostalgic videos I've seen back in the day just because of my foggy memory and as a way to be able to keep them. And I know at this time, like, even though we're coming up to literally the 20th anniversary of YouTube, and I know they're doing a celebration at the VidCon, and like, so many of these videos in particular from unverified YouTube channels, they're just like disappearing left and right, and it's kind of sad, especially when I've revisited some of those videos, you know, found them again, and now they're just gone. You know, it kind of makes me think about just how precious life is, and especially how this type of stuff needs to be backed up so it doesn't become lost media. I have not heard of In the Night Garden. I mean, I've seen just some clips of which, but, you know, I know it's by the same people who did Teletubbies, but I did not grow up with that in as much as Teletubbies. So, yeah. I mean, I've already done the destruction video on Macapaca, and I've only seen the secret missing episode Speakonia video that was done. But yeah, I'm not interested otherwise. Matthew asked what kind of camera I use. It's usually this for my videos. Well, I mean, it's this smaller one. Well, this is the one I am shooting Ghostly Jacket on. But, of course, I also have this one. I did have a third camera, but I recently resold it just because I wasn't using it. You know, just a way to get some easy money on the side. Well, not that I'm broke or anything compared to my brother, whereas since he's moved away and he likes to spend, I'm kind of, you know, keeping things on the down low. You know, the worm's gonna turn, you know. I think that's sort of the thing is with money, you know, you make it, but don't spend it. I mean, I make a 5-digit salary from YouTube, which is quite a lot, especially for a single person, and especially in this economy, if not so much to live comfortably. But yeah, you know, personally, I would rather stay here in California compared to being on the other side of the United States, like a stone's throw from Cuba. You know what I'm talking about, Florida. But yeah, I mean, compared to there, I mean, this place, like San Diego, we're talking here, it's like very chill. It's not nearly as hot unless if you go more inland. And all the frequent storms, I mean, we get no storms here. I mean, once in a while, but not all the time. But it's always bright and sunny and a good climate. And, you know, I can never really get away from this here. You know, I'm just one of those folks to where I was born and will die here in California. I mean, I got San Diego in me. You know, I could just never really get away from it. Of course, it's one of the more expensive cities to live in. You know, I can never picture myself living there. But yeah, I mean, if I were to, I would need to make twice the amount I'd be making on here. I mean, of course, with the job that my brother has, he makes about like a couple thousand more than I do. I'd rather not say the number, you know, for those that are trying to, you know, take my money or so, or know anything on details about with how much I make. But yeah, I mean, it's a decent amount, if not so much to move out and live on my own. And I know most are stuck at home with their parents, you know, and this probably accounts for millions, if not billions, of other millennials and young adults that can't afford to do so. And I know most of them are breaking in to hard labor as opposed to getting, you know, pursuing jobs and careers that they dream of. You know, I mean, it's a way to be able to make a quick buck and be able to live comfortably. But for here, it's better than just being rejected from, you know, different companies, you know, with the degree that you have. You know, it's much easier just to go into hard labor than just try and apply to different jobs left and right and get rejected from each one. Well, I mean, that's sort of the thing. You have to spend more time with applying for jobs to be able to get the one you like. And, you know, of course, you'll never fail until you stop trying. But, you know, of course, that's kind of the reality of the market that we have today. I mean, I imagine it was hard even in, you know, back then in the 90s and so on. I know there are those that kind of worship the 90s as being the best time to grow up, and, you know, especially the 80s and so on, where, I mean, not everything is all, you know, rainbows and lollipops and unicorns. Well, I mean, just sort of that thing. But yeah, I kind of was sort of rambling on. I didn't know what sort of my point was for that, but yeah, I mean, well, I guess the reason I bring up staying in California is also just because of the film scene. Well, I know that not too many Hollywood productions are around these days just because everything's switched to AI, or, you know, there's just not much demand for it and everything's running a corporation. Well, I know that, of course, there's occasional productions I don't know if any of you have heard of this film, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. There's a fifth one that's being shopped around right now. They just shot it in Chula Vista, you know, whereas they shot the original back in 1978, and then the other in 10, well, it followed up 10 years later. It starred George Clooney. And, well, I only bring this up just because one of the actors that I had for one of my Lalaloopsy videos is in that movie. You know, well, of course, I know she was once a part of my class before eventually she dropped out and eventually just moved on to something else. Well, I mean, that's sort of the reality of community college. You know, people drop in and drop out of classes. And yeah, but I mean, she's getting otherwise decent work in, you know. She was in my video, well, just for here, just the voice of Pello. You know, for any of those that have not seen my roommate Pello Featherbed, go and check it out. Give us some traction, and, you know, would help to get the word across. Yeah, I'm not against using AI in particular, but much as the same as with ChatGPT, you have to use it intelligently. Don't let the computer take you. And so, you know, I don't mind just some of these AI videos, and, you know, it's probably much better than trying to recreate it in with, you know, using actual aesthetics or just like the types of stuff that they would use, well, just for like certain time periods. You know, it's much better to do it with a computer. But for here, there's such thing as too much of it. I mean, you have to use it intelligently. I mean, the only way I'm going to use AI is as if I absolutely need to, but I prefer doing it the practical way and that sort of thing. So at least just do it like that and not let it take over, because, you know, it kind of just comes off as being phony. I know that there was the people on The Simpsons that were sort of going on about that and how this is, you know, this is not AI, this is artificial idiocracy and that kind of thing. You know, you have to use it intelligently, but, you know, artificial intelligence can never replicate human stupidity. I mean, of course, I wouldn't be too surprised if movie studios take up on that for like period piece films, but I mean, it can only work to a certain advantage. They're definitely going to ruin daily jobs. Hence to why everybody else is going into hard labor. God forbid, if 10 to 15 years from now they'll be taken over, like something like welding or whatever. But yeah, I know my dad encouraged me to use AI for some of my movies. I've only used just like a little bit of it in one of my My Little Pony movies, but that was just to dub over one of my actors, well, just using footage I had. But for here, it was just with another voice actor. But that was just the only time. But I'm only using it to whenever necessary, to when I could just easily use clips I have here and there, and just do it my way. Of course, you wouldn't even tell unless if I just told you. But yeah. But yeah, I think it's kind of getting a little long-winded for here. I mean, clocking in at close to an hour, even if none of you are really paying any attention, specifically any of the requests I'm going to get to. But yeah, I think just with that, I'll just go ahead and cut the stream off. We'll just chit-chat with you guys for a bit and then see what's up. And I'll see about getting to editing as soon as possible and checking back with backstage that I have. This is where I cast all my actors, and to see with where things go from there, and to be able to go and see my latest film when it comes up, share it with as many people as you can. It really helps, and that's really all there is to it. So I'll just go ahead and I'll leave you to it. I know I don't otherwise point the camera at myself just because I'm not a vlog person. But yeah. This is just also a little script that I've had. Well, I mean, I've used ChatGPT for, and this is going off of a fan fiction into which I used for the film, the Tinkerbell film, although in which case I just had it summarized, but just have it make a summary on it. So with whatever I shoot, it's just much more simplified. But yeah, all the check marks are just for the shots I've already done. And I mean, I've done all of everything you see, and just the stuff that was crossed off was just stuff I didn't shoot, or just the details that weren't really necessary. And all these are books I have not read. Of course, that's sort of the one thing with keeping your brain sharp. Reading, recreation, and revelry. Read, exercise, socialize. And yeah, I mean, of course, many successful people read like one new book a day. I know I haven't, because I'm kind of just sort of stuck in a rut of just, doing whatever, whether it be watching movies or editing. And, of course, you got to make time to do whatever if you can. But yeah. I'm not destroying anything for here. I was just, chatting with fans. But yeah, with that, I'll just go ahead and exit from here, and I'll see you whenever on the next stream. If not, perhaps at Universal Studios. Peace and love, y'all.